Hey, good morning, good Sunday morning to you. With me today, I have Steve from the Everywhere with Steve Young 74 channel. How you doing today, Steve?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. Want to talk to you today, Steve, about something that, well, touches upon every single one of us, whether we like it or not. We have to face bill paying. And I'd like to talk with you today, perhaps about some better money habits that we could use while we're paying our bills. And by the way, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Hmm. You're
Okay,
welcome.
so here's something I've been wondering about this. I have my personal thoughts about this, but I would just love to know what you feel about this. How do you feel about automated bill payments?
Okay. Automated bill payments. One, always make sure you've got the funds in the account. You must make sure of that. Second, a lot of the time, I know my insurance company, when I put stuff on auto pay, which extends my payment an extra 2 months, it gives me a discount on my auto insurance. Um, it that's a couple of respects that's good about it. A third one, it's one of those things where if you have auto pay set up, you can pretty much set it and forget it. If you know that it's going to be in there like clockwork by the time your date shows up, you're good because you want to make sure the money's there before the due date hits. That way the money can come out. Otherwise, you're going to run into an SF, which is something you don't want to do. So and nays about auto pay. I've never had a nay pop up because one, the way that my monies tends to show up when it shows up in my account, it's always before anything is due. So it works out in my favor.
That's very interesting, Steve, and actually I tend to agree with you on that. I do think that there's something that many people kind of overlook or underlook, however way you look at it. I think people are not too aware of, for example, their billing statements due dates. And I think it's important to understand and to know our individual due dates on our particular bills because they do vary. Do you agree that it's important to know the due dates of incoming bills or bills that need
Yes,
to be paid? Yeah.
yes, because one of the things that I just recently did on one of my credit cards is I moved the due date from the 14th of the month to the 22nd. Now, the reason why I did that on my Discover. Now, I have a couple of other credit cards. I have another one that's due on the 22nd, and then I've got one that's due on the 19th. So they're all basically right within the same time frame of each other. So I like the fact that I've got my bills being due on the third week of the month usually because I get my monies usually the very end of the next month if it's on a holiday or something, or I'll get it on the first. So the ability to do any type of auto pay, which I currently don't have any set up at the moment, except for my auto insurance, um, I'll never have an issue making a payment because the money will always be there. That's that's the big thing. Due date and making sure that the funds are there before, the payment goes through. The last thing in the world you want to do is to be charged a $30 non-sufficient fund fee because the money
Yes.
wasn't there, you know.
Good point. Good point there, Steve, about hidden fees, surprise pop ups, which really shouldn't be a surprise. You know what's another thing that I don't think people also understand that about grace periods? Sometimes there's a window of opportunity, oftentimes, I should say, that bills have a thing called a grace period, which is like a window of opportunity, an extension of time to pay. For example, it could vary as little as, let's say, grace period could be as small as 5 days, and I've heard of some grace periods running up to a whopping 15 days.
Right?
That Yeah, there's only one flaw with that. It's good to use on a rare occasion. But if a bill payer is finding himself constantly needing to go that route, they really need to talk to the creditor or utility company or whatever bill they're addressing, and maybe perhaps adjust their billing date. Is that a good option, to try to speak to someone about adjusting the billing date closer to their source of income time? What do you think about that?
Yes, in fact, it just happened to me with the Discover.
Mhm.
I changed the due date from the 14th to the 22nd. That 8 days difference is like 2 weeks worth or a month of helping me out, but even though it's only 8 days. But
Yeah,
um, it always call and find out what they can do for you, because if you've always been on time, good standing, never any late payments, never anything like that, a lot of the time, especially if you've been with them, like with Discover, I've been with them since the year 2000.
yeah,
Never late, always on time, always paid a little bit, a couple weeks before the due date and all that. But I had a little situation come up a few days back, and they were, they notated it in my account. I was able to make a payment, but I wasn't able to make the full payment. But I know how to work around that. But they made a note in their notes that if I get a late fee, it may get, removed, or if I see it, call in and they'll take it off. Because
right,
I've never been late. So it always it always does pay to check and see if you can, because you definitely want your bill dates to work around what's comfortable with your budget. You don't want, due dates to show up at a bad time. So
right.
um, like for example, on a mortgage, I don't know what it is now, but back in 2001, when my dad had a, I had lived in the house with my dad. He had a 15-day grace period to make a mortgage payment,
Yes,
and I don't know how much things have changed now in the mortgage world, but I know back then it was a 15-day grace period. I'm thinking it may be the same, or it could be a little less. It depends. Um,
right.
I
That's
don't
why
know.
it's so important. By the way, I know your dad's no longer here, but I'm sure he could hear me. And thanks to your dad and to the many other wonderful service workers, military. I have such a deep respect for the military and all they do for us. And whether they're here or not doesn't matter. They made that sacrifice in their lives, and we're so appreciative. And it does affect the family. I just want to make mention. I totally respect your dad for all his efforts and stuff like that, Steve.
Right, right. To let everybody know, that those that don't know, I am a military brat. My dad was in the U.S. Navy. He was a yeoman, first class. He served from July 18th, 1957 to February 28th, 1981. But he also has 6 months of the National Guards under him
Wow.
as well prior to that. And I was born overseas. I was born in Catania, Sicily. He actually wound up being stationed in the same place twice.
Wow.
Once when my sister, once when my sister was born, and once when I was born. So, but yes, I am a military brat. I'm very proud of it. I have all the respect in the world for the military
Yeah.
service. Any places or businesses that does not support, or does not, or looks down upon the military, will not get my business. I will not
Yeah.
go to a place that does not support the military.
Now,
That's
without
that.
naming names, we both know of one place that's a popular place that doesn't seem to appreciate things the way they really should. So I will not patronize that kind of an establishment. So
If it's where I think you're
yes,
talking,
yes, it is coffee,
they
coffee. Yeah, yeah.
they have look. if you're able to drink it, more power to you. They have the absolute worst coffee you'll
Yeah,
ever. I don't like a burnt tasting coffee. If I want to burn coffee, I can do it here for free.
that's it. That's it. Not a
I
fan.
mean,
Yeah, not a
yeah.
fan. Not a
So
fan. So, and thank you and your dad for that because it affects the whole family and your mom and your sister and all that. And I know it's off topic in reference to bill paying, but I thought of your dad and all the wonderful wealth of wisdom that he taught you because you've mentioned him so many times to me in different circumstances with different situations. And he was just absolutely wonderful, wonderful person. Steve,
mhm.
just momentarily here, getting back to what I just want to say in summary, and then of course you could add anything you want to this after I'm done with the summary. In summary, when it comes to managing money better, this is my totally good suggestion to make a list. Everyone should make a list of all their bills, their utilities, credit cards, rent, their mortgage. People think, oh, I know all these numbers. Make the list, look at it, put it in one place. These days you could use an app or even just a simple notebook, or just type it somewhere, whatever, put in your little phone. It's the idea being, Steve, of seeing the bills in the one place, and this will absolutely help people keep track. This is why a lot of people say they can't keep a budget. They can't keep a budget because they're really not keeping track of things, and by starting that, it's a really good basis to begin. Steve, I want to thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this?
Well, no, except reverting back to my father, if anybody was ever curious as to how my dad was like, I'll give you an example. Well, you already know he was in the military, so attach that to the television character that I'm about to mention. My dad, I always thought my dad reminded me of John Amos's character on Good Times, James Evans. My
Ah,
dad My dad reminded me a lot of him. So
wow.
if you could imagine that with a military feel to it, you had my father. And then if you want to, mention how my mom was, the type of upbringing I had, my mom was a cross between Judy and Sophia all girls. And everybody thinks that I lived a very strict, walk a straight line type of upbringing. Well, no, not really, not completely, but but that was the type of upbringing that I had, that for role models from mom and dad.
Wonderful. They were there for you, and they were there for you and your sister in a great way, and it shows. I could always tell. I could always tell. All right,
Hmm.
Steve. Thank you, everybody, for being here on this Sunday morning or afternoon, or whenever you're listening to this, whatever time of day or whatever. We'd like to have more shows like this in the future. Talking about spending our money better, better habits. It could be on a Sunday. We could be talking about groceries. We could be talking about anything, in fact, but it all comes back to good ideas that we put our heads together and we share. Thanks again, Steve. Don't forget to head on over to Steve Young, to the Everywhere with Steve Young 74 channel. He has a random channel. You can never be bored. I'm usually on his channel about one time a week at the very least, maybe even more
Hmm.
sometimes.
Yep.
So catch his channel. He has great topics. You will not get bored. I promise you. But you know what, Steve, before we go, this is very important. This is for everyone. There's problems when it comes to getting unsubscribed, even if you didn't unsubscribe yourself. Please be sure to check that you are still subscribed to our channels. Sometimes, out of nowhere, technically, I don't do it for you. You don't do it for you. We are magically unsubscribed. Please double check to make sure. Steve needs to hit his 1,000 subscribership goal. If every one of you know one person that would like to continue to watch Steve's shows, please, please, please have them hopefully continue to consider subscribing. Take care, Steve. Bye, everybody.
Bye. You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.